Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Before I hand over to the chair of tonight's meeting, just to remind everyone in the room that we are now live streaming, and we would politely request that all participants take turns to speak and avoid cross talking. That's so anyone observing can hear you. This will help the mics lock in on the primary speaker and thereby maximise the sound quality for those watching at home. And if you are watching at home and wish to participate in tonight's meeting, please turn your video on. If you are just observing, please turn your video off. Unless actively speaking, all those watching the meeting via Zoom should have their mics. And I now hand over to our chair for tonight, Councillor Simon Crundle.
Good evening, everyone. You have to bear with me. I'm not a terribly good chair, but I'm in capable hands with Linda. So I think first we ask for public participation. Would any members of the public like to speak to any items on the agenda this evening?
Disappointed to say no.
I would be very disappointed. So, I'd love to hear
My name is Paul Carter. I'm chair of the Melksham Remembers Historical Group, and I'm actively committee of the Melksham District Historical Association. It's in connection with the Queen's Jubilee celebration. I approached Miriam initially just to find out if there was anything in train, what they were doing, and so on. The idea I had was for a portable photographic exhibition within the archive of both Melksham Remembers and Historical Group. There's pictures of royal visits. Unfortunately, the Queen herself hasn't been here, but nevertheless, we've had other royal visits. What I thought was we could use that collection, stick them up on boards, but also ask people through the Melksham News if they've got photos where they've met Queen, particularly Garden Party, Federation, that sort of thing. And other members of the royal family that they might be willing to add to the list. We can print them up, stick them on the board. Nothing too fancy, but just people come in, have a look, say this is lovely. There were some boards, display boards that we used when we had the Melksham Remembers had an exhibition in this room in 2018. And I thought just literally just sticking the pictures on that board, and maybe a venue like this for the town, and then you could then go around to other village halls. I have spoken to Melksham Without Council. They had a meeting last week, and they were, in theory, there should be a lot of effort from your part, but they were broadly supportive of it. So really, it was just a case of making sure that nobody else is doing something similar, which I think they're not. Talking to Miriam, and then just your thoughts of the council on the idea.
Wonderful, thank you for that. And we'll be
May I speak?
Oops.
Thank you. I well remember, Paul, the last exhibition there was. It was really nice. So I would welcome it. I'd heartily recommend it, in fact.
Perfect. Well, we'll get an opportunity to discuss these item 6, but I'm sure that many on this council will thoroughly enjoy display that you're looking to put together. Would anyone else from the public, perhaps on Zoom, wish to speak to anything? I can see Adrienne, you'd like to say something.
It's just a real quickie, actually. It's just that when you're on Zoom, you don't know which councillors are in the room. And I literally only came in seconds before the meeting started. So all you get is like a pinprick of a head. Is it possible to just be told who's there, please?
Yes, of course.
It's just easier for listening to what's going on. I've only come to listen, not to participate, but it's just nice to know who's there. Thank you ever so much.
Okay. No, at all. So to my left, which was supposed to be your right, we've got Councillor Price, Councillor Lewis, Councillor Aves, and then to my right, we have Councillor Mortimer and Councillor Carl Horton. Perfect. I'm sorry that you were struggling to see who
honestly, I don't know whether or not Graham agrees with me, but I don't know whether he's seeing the same as me, but honestly, you are no bigger than a little Lego model.
But after a day at work, I suppose that actually stands in your favour.
Thank you very much. I much appreciate that.
I mean, I'm seeing people relatively small there, and the issue I have is actually some of the sound issue, and the sound is going up and down. But
Oh, right. Are you experiencing that as well at home, Adria?
A little bit, but honestly, all I've done is heard what Paul said. But I've come to listen, so I don't particularly want to take up anybody's time. It's just that if you don't know what it's like on Zoom with the meeting, because it's so different from what Zoom used to be, I wanted to pass that information over.
We appreciate your feedback. We're still relatively new to this system, but if we as councillors try and speak in a raised voice, then we can ensure everyone at home can hear us. Right, so have we received any apologies?
Yeah, apologies from Councillor Jack Coatley.
And we wish him well soon. Declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest to make on any items on the agenda? No? Perfect. Minutes. Assume you've all had a chance to quickly glance over the minutes from our meeting in January, which being about you seems like a lifetime ago to me. But I have a proposer to say this is a true and accurate record of our meeting, proposed by Councillor Horton and seconded by Councillor Aves. We go to a vote. Wonderful, and that's unanimous. I've got to give a scribble.
If you sign there and then just initial the front page.
Fantastic, thank you.
And that's just thing that I can't. Oh.
Wonderful. Some days away. Thank you very much. Right, now on to the meeting proper. Item 4, supporting community events in Melksham. Miriam has given us a report, pages 5 to 6. And this is regarding support that the Town Council can give to community groups who run events in our town. I'm sure we're all incredibly grateful for the massive amount of work that members of the community in Melksham do for our town. And in fact, I think we are the envy of many towns in Wiltshire when it comes to things like the Food and River Festival and Melksham Park in the Park and the Carnival, the list goes on. However, I think it's been highlighted that some community events would benefit from support from the council. And in fact, having a council officer involved in the organisation committees of these events would benefit us as members to target support where needed. I am not speaking out of turn there. So would anyone like to speak to this item? Have any reflections on the report? No, so it was, oh, sorry, Councillor Mortimer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and Beth Dart spoke to me the other day and she asked me if I'd like to join their committee as councillor, so I didn't know, because they haven't got one on their committee. Am I allowed to do that? Or does that have to be?
I'm sure we can. I think what
you have to be appointed to council, but it shouldn't be a problem. In fact, I'm surprised we haven't got anyone appointed to the Carnival Committee. We should have. Check that, and if not, we'll put it on the agenda for the next council meeting. No,
we never had one.
No, but I think various members of the council have been part of the group, but not officially appointed. Okay, that's as far as I can remember anyway.
Well, perhaps that's something that we as a community could suggest to council. And if you'd be willing, Councillor Mortimer, I think it'd be fantastic. Yeah. Right. So members are requested to decide whether, like officers, to explore the financial and resource implications in providing officer support to assist groups organising large town events. Now, I understand that we will be looking to review our staffing needs in the near future. And so I would suggest that this should firmly fall within that remit. I'm happy to take views from everyone in this room, but do we think that that should be part of the review, and should the provision of officer support be something that we should be encouraging to engage in our community? Councillor Aves.
By all means, I don't see any reason why not. I mean, even if it is eventually rejected, it's worth a discussion.
Absolutely, thank you. Councillor Price.
Thank you. Yeah, so just I think that's quite a good idea. So we look at, speaking to the officers, and they can work out what help they can give and what the council needs to provide. And when it gets to our staff and matters, we'll realise exactly the commitments we need, whether we need more or less or whatever. It seems silly to do a staffing review without this in place. So you're completely right then.
Right, well, do we need to pass a motion for this, or is this staff? Are we to receive the report?
You know the report, and with the recommendation, I think just to give us the, please do explore and see what the implications are financially and time-wise, and maybe come back to the committee or feed it into the staff.
Wonderful. So if we were,
But you support, I think.
So if we have the motion that we support you investigating this with an aim of bringing back financial and time implications to this committee, and I think that will act as a really good soundboard for us to then look at how we can better support our fantastic community.
And I think it would be worth finding out from these wonderful groups where their sort of like their difficulties are the most, and where we might be able to offer support, where they've got gaps, or it's
go further than just giving grant money as well. We actually have some tangible support where they need it. So, Councillor Ace, would you propose that?
Yes, I'll propose it.
Can I have a second, please? Councillor Hawthorne, wonderful. And shall we vote? Unanimous. Fantastic. Jubilee trees. This I am particularly keen on. So here we have to note the report, and the recommendations is that we approve the 3 schemes. So should we go through them in turn? Firstly, would anyone like to, does anyone have any burning comments they'd like to make about this item before we get going? No? Okay, so there are 3 schemes identified. We are nearing the end of the financial year, so we do have money budgeted for tree planting. We have £15,000, which will go a long way to putting trees into the ground. So the 3 schemes are our planting the single significant tree in King George V playing field. This is a commemorative tree. It's supposed to have a focal point for the forest. And I think with all of the town and parish councils across the country doing it, I think I'm right in saying it will come close to the world record for the most trees planted in a day, and will amount to a small forest. Rather impressive. And I think this comes alongside, is the plaque in this one, or is it in the later item? Okay, wonderful. So this comes with the financial implications, with £150 for the tree. And then we as a council have a choice on the plaque that we use to commemorate it. A small A5 plaque is £119, and for £129, we can upgrade that to an A4 commemorative plaque. Councillor Aves.
Is any particular tree, which species of tree is being proposed as part of Queen's Forest?
I'm not sure. In here it says a large sapling for £150, but when I read this, I would have thought that our officers would have looked at what tree would go best there. Being sort of novice in horticulture, I understand that it's the best plant in the best place is what we want, rather than...
and native species is always favourable as well. We haven't sort of like looked into that detail yet, have we?
The advice,
we will.
the advice with Jubilee planting is that it be suitable to the area and of native species.
Oh, so nothing in particular.
Nothing in particular.
Okay, right. Well, I'll go with whatever is advised, but I just wondered what it was.
Well, should we suggest that when it is all decided that we have a sort of note to the committee just so we're aware?
As soon as we know, we'll definitely advise committee and get it onto the agenda, but probably
if
for
we,
now.
If we give you the go ahead now, I think There
Yes.
are people in offices of this council who know far more about botany than I.
Yes, the 11th of March planting day is this Friday. So to go ahead with this, we would source something locally, quickly, and
Big enough not to be
appropriately,
vandalised.
yeah, to go somewhere in the park.
Wonderful. Should we vote on these individually, or should we vote on them block? at the end?
I just asked.
Oh, sorry, there are two. Councillor Mortimer, do you
Yeah, I just wondered where the tree was planned to go.
The suggestion is somewhere in the sensory garden area. So in the corner where the path comes in from the entrance.
Yeah.
Where the path starts, and before it splits up, there's crocus there now. So there's a space there that would be quite prominent for a new tree that would like kickstart the Jubilee year of planting.
Quite nice as it's the entrance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Horton, you wanted to.
That was going to be my question, but also I think the extra £10, it would be nice to upgrade.
I quite agree. For £10 more to double the size of the plaque, I would suggest would be a very sensible thing to do. It would also, I mean, if there's a tree as you walk in, you know, an A5 plaque is easily missed, whereas an A4 plaque, people know what we're doing in planting a tree, which would be interesting.
And it will be history as well for the town.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. It's worth noting the King George V plaque that commemorates it as a King George V playing field is stone, isn't it? So stood the test of time. Right. So, that's all. I do apologise.
We're talking about this Friday, aren't we?
We are. So we'll have to give the go ahead, and our officers will have to act pretty quickly. But that is the organised day in which to do the plant.
I just wondered, is it going to be an organised sort of like little ceremony? Are we going
I believe we can do that.
to invite people down?
We can invite councillors and the press
Yeah.
and make it an event.
Yeah, I
think
thought
so.
the mayor might be able to put your acting there.
Yeah.
Yes, and this forms part of what the Queen would like us to do to celebrate her Jubilee, and I understand we're going to come on to what we want to do as a town celebrate. Personally, I do think it's very important that we do things like this, get trees in the ground. But the next item is something I think so particularly Councillor A's got some experience in, which is arranging a tree resident planting scheme. So to read the item, this was done in previous years and was incredibly popular and successful. The cost would be between £1.50 and £2 per sapling. The scheme could be launched in the summer alongside Jubilee celebrations, and residents could register for a tree which will be delivered in the autumn. Now, I understand your tree is doing very well.
It
Councillor
certainly
Hayes.
is taller than me now.
Isn't that
Yeah, it's
fantastic?
just about, although it did spend for the first couple of years in a pot
Mm.
and was watered well, you know, I mean, because it was in a pot, I remember to water it because it was there just outside the door. So it had a good start and then it was planted the last summer. I think you lose track of time, but anyway, it's in the ground now. And once it got in the ground, it was great. You could just, you know, it was growing like mad.
That's amazing because the initiative was 2020, if you remember the beginning of 2020, just before we went into lockdown.
Yeah, I know it spent a long time in a pot. Yeah,
So-
but it's doing very well now.
So for the benefit of the committee, I referenced that conversation with Councillor A's from the Environmental Self-Working Group, where we looked at the residents' tree planting scheme and Councillor A's ability to kill trees. And there was a concern that these small saplings might not survive. But this is the aim, having these small ones that are in people's gardens where they're sheltered and people can give them the love and attention they need. And these saplings wouldn't be suitable for public spaces where they're prone to vandalism. But in people's gardens, as Councillor has demonstrated, they can be a remarkable success. And phenomenally cheap as well, between £1.50 and £2. And given the right TLC, they can, you know, cumulatively, we're creating quite a habitat across the town. I think it's something that the council has done before to great success, and it'd be a wonderful scheme to continue. Would anyone like to speak to that item?
I've just got a question. would there have been a register of the people who were given one, who took one, and could we possibly follow up? How many of them actually succeeded?
I don't think we did take a register because of GDPR, because people came up to the beginning and collected.
Oh, I
There was
see.
no kind of, yeah.
It's rather interesting. Also, we're a new council, aren't we? So I
Yeah.
suppose that database would belong to the last council if it existed.
That would have been David.
Mailing list, I think. I could look
It's
into.
rather interesting. Consistency of officers, but not of the council. I wonder how that works under GDPR.
It's the council owns the data.
Oh,
As long as it's
perfect.
treated properly, yeah.
Wonderful. Councillor Mortimer.
I just thought, well, I didn't know when you had a database of them, I just thought it might be eventually sending them out to you to ask them for anybody who's got photos of the trees that were done originally.
I could write a letter. I'm sure he'd print it for me.
Wonderful. I think that'd be a really nice piece of homework to do, actually, to track success of this scheme. But also, it might give us some insights how to make it more successful in future years. Particularly knowing what types of trees do best in this town with our sort of microclimate and everything else. So I think that is a wonderful idea. Right, 3, start to plant the Woodland
We
Trust
need to make a resolution that will support that.
for this.
The second, yeah.
I thought we were doing them in bulk.
I
Which you
thought
said
we
was
do
your-
them individually.
Okay, we haven't voted on the first one, actually.
Oh, sorry.
So,
That's,
plant a significant tree in King George V playing field. Can I have a proposal there? Councillor Mortimer and a seconder. Councillor Hayes, wonderful. Should we vote? Unanimous. And do we need a supplementary one for the plaque? Because there's 2 financial implications, aren't there?
yeah, it wouldn't hurt because we mentioned that in that resolution to go for the significant tree and the A4 plaque in one.
Oh, so we don't need
resolution.
to.
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect. Right, for the residents tree planting scheme, rather, can I have a proposer for that, please? Councillor Hayes, and is that seconded by Councillor Price? We vote. Unanimous. What a collective spirit we have. Thirdly, to start to plant the Woodland Trust whips in King George V playing field. So this is around the current dog area in King George V Park. We have about 100 metres of fencing that is currently just a metal fence, and it's still rather reminiscent of a children's play area, despite the fact of being well used by dog owners. So this is to propose that we plant a series of saplings along the fence, which will grow into a hedgerow, distinguishing between the park and the dogs area, but also providing habitats for insects, birds, etc. Now, I understand that there was a statement that we would use our Facebook page to consult the town and see if there were any strong objections to this. But actually, before we go further, would anyone like to comment on this? Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, I think that would be an ideal place because going back to watering, that area is quite boggy. It both needs trees there, plus of course they would benefit from being there because of it being boggy. So it would. I think it's a perfect location for them.
I think you raised a fantastic point, Councillor Hayes. Anyone like? Oh, got 2. Councillor Horton.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience planting trees. Will the saplings be protected? Because I can just imagine them getting trampled. And
I understand they won't, but they'll be along the fence row, so they're not actually in an area where people will walk. So they'll have some natural protection in that people will go through the gate as opposed to over the fence, particularly if you have a dog. So I think there is an element of faith here that we've got to, with the understanding that vandals won't just come and rip them up. But as with any public planting scheme, I understand that is just a risk that we have to take.
dogs, is it outside or inside the dog house?
Outside.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That was
Our team will probably make sure the ones that are planted up to the access gates are sort of like
I thought it was inside, so I was worried about the dog.
So
The dogs would
yeah,
love that. They've
I-
got lots of sticks to throw.
you know, a terrier that likes digging up holes. Councillor Mortimer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was wondering whether sort of like something like dog roses or something like that, like sort of like covered fence more than sort of like trees, because as the trees go big, then are they going to bush up or what? You know, what I mean, I just think something like dog roses and that, 'cause we've got some in our garden, they do really well in that area.
Wonderful. Well, on that front, also.
Well, there is the point, Sue, that not all trees succeed, no matter how much you care for them. So whatever's planted, you can probably guess up to 50% of them won't succeed, and that's just normal. But with it being in that area, I'd put it a little bit higher, that would succeed. But I don't think they're going to be too much at risk there anyway, as long as they remain planted.
I think you do raise a good point, and it's worthwhile having it as a suggestion. I think Councillor A's also made a very valid point that is quite boggy there. And so if that's a suggestion, but we don't include it in the motion, in that it might very well be that our officers identify a type of tree that will grow there. I mean, I don't know the growing conditions the dog would like, but in terms of the soil and the moisture, some shrubs can't stand being in waterlogged soil, they can't stand clay soil. And so perhaps if we have that as a suggestion, but not part of the motion, it would leave the freedom for our officers to say, actually, no, this is incredibly clay, wet soil. This is the kind of plant that will succeed. So Councillor Price, would you?
Yeah, I'm actually going to say I'm assuming we have experts within our team, and I'm assuming they will be ones that tell us what the best plan for the best bushes and trees are for right now. We don't really, none of us are experts in that, and I'm sure that the team are very aware of the best ones for that. So we just got to trust that.
I've become very interested in gardening in recent years. All I know now is that I know absolutely nothing. But would you be happy with that, Councillor? If we had that as a suggestion, that we maintain the sort of freedom of our officers to say, actually, no, this is acidic soil, and therefore this plant is the only one that will live, or whatever it might be.
Just all combination of hedges and trees.
I think certainly as well, diversity in hedgerows is something to be desired, isn't it? So
Otherwise it looks too uniform, it makes more sense. It look natural.
well, does that all make sense to
Yeah,
you?
it does to me.
Right. Miriam, does that? Well, we can pick everything rambling.
I didn't catch that.
Oh, sorry.
Siri doesn't have reasons, but on that basis, I think what was the financial implication of the fence?
We've already got
Oh, we've already got the money. Yeah, we've got the saplings actually, haven't we?
the saplings are free from the Woodland Trust.
Isn't that fantastic news? So now, if we just pass a motion to put the saplings in the ground.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Aves and a seconder. Ooh, Councillor Horton. Wonderful. Should we vote? Unanimous. Brilliant. Right, the next item on the agenda, which I have it in front of me, but my it's getting a bit mixed. Queen's Jubilee celebrations, pages 9 to 16 on your sheet. So to receive a report from the Community Development Officer, members are requested to consider the following recommendations. Decide whether any of the ideas within the report should be pursued and allocate funding accordingly. Decide whether to create a community survey to determine which elements are most popular in order to select preferred activities, and to decide, if required, whether to set up a working group to deliver the agreed actions. So you can see behind me, it's quite an impressive table, which has been populated by sort of suggestions from the council and the community, one of which we have heard in the form of the Royal Photo Exhibition. So there's a lot to get through here, and there's a lot to consider. We haven't actually got any money in the budget to fund this. However, with Part in the Park not going ahead this year, I understand, should the council be minded to do so, we could appropriate that money for the Jubilee celebrations. So if that is the case, the prohibitive cost would be twofold in our officers' time and time to organise the events. So if we go through and bear those two factors in mind, what I would suggest is we create a short list of the activities we think would have the greatest impact for marking the event in the town. And then, based on previous council experience, we will decide, I think, whether to find a means of consultation where members of our community can say, you know, I want options 2, 3, 5, and 9. Or whether, and I think it would be unwise for us to be prescriptive and just say, this is the offering, you better turn up. But if we go through each of them, we can get to that in a minute. So first off, we have bunting. To build a high street from Marketplace Bridge, including Church Street, for around 2,000 metres. If you look on the next, the page after the next, which, here we go. There you are. There is this fantastically ambitious map, which would mark the high street entirely in bunting, creating that sort of atmosphere of celebration. And what I would say to this is that if we choose the bunting correctly, this is something that we can roll out year after year, and will bring a wonderful atmosphere to the town whenever we wish to have this sort of atmosphere of celebration. Does anyone particularly love or hate this idea? Councillor Mortimer.
Yeah, I love the idea of having bunting through town, but I was wondering whether we could get the community involved in making the bunting, because we've made some bunting for our street. We just need a triangle and some pink and chairs, and then just.
There's a wonderful point to note, and I believe that later on as well there are proposals to have bits in the marketplace around that. But I suppose the question: 2,000 metres of bunting. To what extent could we get a community group to make that in a weather-resistant manner? Does anyone else? Councillor Aves, would you?
Yeah, I love the idea. I think you'd struggle to find the people to do it. It wouldn't be uniform. It might end up not looking as nice as you've got in your mind, Simon. So I would go for the money, and then we'd be able to store it and use it if and when needed.
Right. Does anyone else? Councillor Price?
Yeah, I do like the idea of it being made, but I don't think it'll be as impactful if every single one was slightly different. And it would be nice for people to make it, but I just don't think it'll be as good. With the cost, obviously, if that's how much it costs, we can reuse it. That's fine. Have we actually looked at how much it would cost to rent something like that? I'm not saying it would be viable, but is that something we have looked at? Because if it's significantly lower, and we're going to have Union Jack bunting, it could be something that's more beneficial to rent for a one-off rather than buying all in one. I'm not saying it is, just have we looked into it?
That's a fantastic point. I know one of the answers to that you mentioned Union Jack bunting. I think to have just red, white, and blue would be half the cost of having bunting with an individual Union Jack, and probably a bit less divisive than covering the whole town in Union flags. I mean, patriotic as we all are, some people might not buy into that quite as much. But the red, white, and blue would represent the colours. With regards to renting, is that something that we've looked into?
I didn't even know because it's
Nor did
not,
I.
it doesn't last long, does it?
I don't know.
We'll certainly follow that up. I've never even thought about renting bunting.
If it's significantly lower, it might just be worth a look.
Councillor Mortimer.
Yeah, just on Tom's point, I think the kind of renting would probably be about half the cost anyway. So I don't know, but an experience on things that I've read, gone to rent, we're better off buying and keeping.
And say, in the case that it was half, personally, I don't know what the committee managed to do, but as a community development committee, I think I would sooner make the investment that we could use it every year. I mean, when looking at that map, it's got the two costs, but this map, wouldn't it be wonderful to replicate this on things like the Food and River Festival and Party in the Park, and the Carnival, especially the Carnival, which comes through the town centre? Councillor Mortimer.
Yeah, my point, I was just going to make the point about you saying that it's all going to be uniform. I just thought it would be more in keeping with 70 years ago if it was actually what people named and it's like what's actually done on the coronation. That's why I come up with that idea.
Okay. Well, Councillor Walton.
Yeah, I think Councillor Mortimer's idea is a good one. I think what would be good is to encourage local residents in the town to decorate their own streets with bunting, because obviously this isn't going to reach all the individual streets, and it'd be nice to have that throughout the town. And I think thinking about schools, I'm sure schools have their own individual ideas of what they're going to do for Jubilee, but decorating schools with their own bunting created by children would be amazing. I would largely encourage families to get involved with that and to help decorate their streets with anything that they can make themselves.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone else? Just to speak to that, I think that this comes under the same item, which is that on page 15, there are these Jubilee badges, which does that go under the bunting part? Yeah. So there are these rather smart Jubilee badges, which are £5 each, and it was proposed they could be in the town square for the Jubilee year. And also just to speak to the homemade bunting, I think it was also an idea to have the banners in the marketplace, which would be more of a homemade sort of item. But I think whether we go ahead with this or not, I think we're going to speak to each of the items. Perhaps we do need to consult. Sorry, Councillor Horton.
Just an idea for the badges, because they are a good idea, just to reuse them so they're not sort of just a one-off buy. I know as we're planting trees for the Jubilee, would it be appropriate to put the badges to a tree so that they stay there permanently, so that they're not just recycled afterwards?
It's an interesting idea. We'd have to consult perhaps with Dr. Cardy as well, and putting things around trees as they grow, because obviously the trunks grow out, don't they?
These are only £5 each. I mean, they might last a couple of years, but I doubt they'd be like for the long term.
It'd be nice to keep them going as long as we can, and then rather than just getting rid of them.
Perhaps if we do go ahead with this, then we can have them in the square for the celebration and then move them to our Jubilee trees, because a lot of them I understand will be planted in autumn. So towards the end of the year. So it would be a nice thing to do so as they're not wasted for the remainder of their life. They could mark some of the more from Jubilee trees. I think it's a wonderful idea. Right, well that's that discussed. So do we think that we don't have to resolve anything at the moment, but do we think that should make it onto the shortlist? Sorry, Councillor Aves.
Just remember that Terry Walsh and her ladies are making flags and they're on the theme for Jubilee. So they'll be up, won't they?
They are.
Down the high street. So
these are the ones to go on those, as they wonderfully do on a lot of commemorative occasions.
So they'll be there as well. So if you could just imagine, I don't think we're going to need an awful lot more decoration in the town, but apart from what individual shops will do themselves.
No, but I do think it's also worth noting that Melksham has a reputation for its decoration, either in bloom or Christmas lights. It is something that we do have a reputation for. So I think it will be nice, and particularly our banners are truly spectacular. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Mortimer.
Yeah, just on Pat's point about getting the shop to go into a competition.
Well, that's actually one of the later items, I think, suggested by our town clerk Inga. But next is the Royal Photo Exhibition. Would anyone like to speak to this before I give my 2 cents? That's what it is.
Well, isn't that what Paul was originally?
It is exactly that point.
So
your
that's
favour is on record.
That's kind of dealt with, isn't it?
Wonderful. Yes. I mean, I was going to say I can't imagine anyone wouldn't want to do it. It's an incredibly relevant and indeed wonderful idea to look back into the archives of people of Melksham, sort of polarised to find the royal photos. I think it would be, particularly as a history graduate, I find it a fascinating exhibition to look through. So personally, I would be all in favour, and I'm astonished that it would only cost us £10. It seems like a no-brainer. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, I'm happy for that to go on a short list, just because it seems like it's got a lot of, it'll have a lot of historical value for a lot of people, and it'll be nice for people to look back on.
Yes.
Included in that.
And I could think of nothing better to use our assembly hall, which will be the focal point in the middle, or town hall indeed. But if it will fit in the town hall, I think it'd be nice here, because it's the more prominent building in the middle of it all.
It fitted in here last time, didn't it, Paul?
Allowed to speak.
Sorry, it's rather formal process. Spencer Stenton will just second in favour.
Yeah, I mean, I don't envisage it being quite on the scale of the 100-year anniversary of the end of the First World War exhibition. So from that point of view, this type of thing room, I think, would be ideal. And specifically, because obviously it could be done online, but I specifically thought this would appeal to perhaps an older generation that don't necessarily go online, and the fact that as we're in the summer and I got this on, we'll be a bit more COVID free, and people will be anxious, desperate to get out and look at things in person rather than sat at home in front of their telly. I've spoken to Melksham News as well, and they're happy to run the piece in terms of getting that out there to ask for people to send their photos in. And obviously, ultimately, the size of it will be sort of garnered by the amount of interest that comes back, but I can't imagine anything great.
Wonderful. So would you say that the town hall would be more suitable then? Because Assembly Hall is quite a sizable space, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if it was just specifically for something like this, I think this would be ideal, because obviously you've got a nice room that people can circulate and come in, and obviously they're using the building as well. You alluded to at the start of it. It's another place to get people into, and
it's the sort of focal point transfer. So it'd be a lovely, I think it'd be a wonderful way to use this for celebrations. Yeah. Right, so we don't have to formally go back to. No, wonderful. Right. So I think that's certainly on the short list. In fact, is there any way we can? No, we can do. Just have to example, but let's go through them. I mean, I think when we come to the consultation, we should have the sort of core things and other things. But perhaps we'll discuss as we go through. So Melksham Shop Bingo. This is a rather fascinating proposal by Linda. So it is to create. In fact, well, Linda, you could probably explain it a bit a touch better. But most intriguingly, aside from the immediate activity, is also the scope to create sort of new relationships with businesses and get people engaged in local shops. So Linda, would you like to speak to that?
It sort of like goes on the back of Melksham retailers and small businesses always do an amazing job when we have a shop window competition, and the town looks amazing. So we still want to encourage our retailers to do a shop window competition. And at carnival time, we do a spot the oddity. So youngsters go around and they have to point out what's a bit odd about the display. So there's usually something in the window that's a bit intriguing, and they should make a note of what that is. So it led me to wonder about actually getting people into the shops, not necessarily to have the hard sell from the retailer, but just to actually get them in and have a card stamped by the retailer. So we prepare a sheet, A4, with all the businesses that wanted to take part in the competition, with their logo and with a few words about what they do. And then it doesn't have to be limited to children. Just go into the shop and get a stamp or a signature. And we'd collect all of the completed cards, put them into a drawer, and working with some of the businesses, maybe get them to do a Love to Shop Melksham voucher, so that the winner, or we could have a few winners, would obviously spend that money in one of the businesses that were taking part. In a roundabout way, that's sort of what I had in mind. I just think it would be nice to engage with the retailers. It also gives me another opportunity to say hello. Since COVID, I haven't really spoken to many of the the businesses, and just talk about what the town council is doing, you know, talk about sponsorship, the floor displays, Christmas light switch on. But as a way of including them in our Platinum Jubilee celebration, it's not going to be that costly. I'm sure we could do an artwork of their logos, but obviously the businesses that want to take part in it. But as a nod to the businesses really, and to do something a little bit different. A lot of conversations by people going in that have never been in before, maybe.
Thank you, Linda. Councillor Horton, you first.
I think just merging both the ideas together of the shop bingo and the window competition, I think actually let's mix with the local businesses and see if they can help the community as well with the prize. That'd be amazing.
Wonderful. I think Councillor Morton, you're next, and someone on this side, or to Councillor Morton, then Councillor Crafts.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, Linda, I think it's a wonderful idea and to get the people in the shop, but I was wondering if perhaps they could have like something on the lines of Spotliosity, or a little thing that they've got to find within that shop that they could mark on the card rather than just getting it stamped. I just thought it might give them a chance to look round the shop.
Good idea.
Yes.
Councillor Price.
Yeah, no, I what to say, and yeah, Carl, you know, merging the two, bingo and the shop window competition, it's going to promote the businesses within our town. It doesn't really cost anything. It's a bit of almost like a no-brainer, really. We can develop this idea as if we accept it, you know, in a working group potentially if we do that for the Jubilee. I think it's great. Yeah, and the more we can do from the town, the better. It's all got to be massive and huge. Little things like that. What makes a difference?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
What I loved about this was that for a couple of stamps and a scorecard, we provide, we get an engaging activity for children to go around the town centre, which is a lovely thing to do. We get people to look into local shops that perhaps you walk past and you don't go into. And you also start to foster, reignite that relationship between the town council and our local shops, which even if it was just the networking exercise for our town clerk, I think it would be a fantastically useful use of our officer time. So I think, that's got quite a positive reception, hasn't it? So the next one, I think we've dealt with the shop window competition alongside that, haven't we? I think it's quite sensible to merge the two. So moving on to lighting a beacon. So there is some supplementary information about this, some different beacon designs, whether they're from gas to building one to a huge bonfire. The options are endless, but I'd be interested to know what people around the table think. Councillor Hood.
I would like with this idea, because I think it's not like it says in the actual report, it's national. It had to get. I think what would be brilliant if we maybe got in touch with Melksham Oak Community School and see if actually one of their, this is Science Technology School, some of their students could create a beacon. And, there might not be a cost, so we could put someone's name to it, and actually for a few students to put on their CV about making a beacon for the town Jubilee, that would be help them loads in what they might be trying to achieve. So.
That's good. Sorry, I didn't know I was sort of staring at you for a while.
Well, never mind. That's a lovely idea, Carl, and I think you picked the right term as well, because from my experience as a teacher, all the exams will be over, so the older ones that could take part would be free to do so. So it would be worth asking. I don't know, we don't really have a lot of contact with school, do we? That's the trouble. But this might kickstart something.
Well, our mayor's on the board of governors, isn't he?
Yeah, but I don't think there's been a meeting yet, has there? No.
What date? 'Cause I'm just thinking exams run into June, don't they?
June's about the first week of June. They're all over. at the end of the first week of June. So it's cutting it a bit fine, isn't it? But yeah, but then there are other classes that aren't doing exams, and but the trouble is they're all on syllabuses, and then sometimes they get a bit tight. And then there's sports. I mean, it's worth asking.
Yeah.
Definitely worth asking.
Something mentioned would do very well.
Yeah. Throw a bit of cold water on it.
Mention
but,
would
yeah,
be
that's
fantastic.
how
It's something like this,
yeah.
wouldn't it? So when I first saw this, I thought, what a remarkable idea! It's be absolutely fantastic. I think there are 2 points to bear in mind, though. It's not wholly compatible with our environmental policies. Just have a big burning beacon outside. I think that's something to be mindful. But of course, this could also be something that, you know, if people of the town wanted, it would be a spectacular sort of centre of the celebrations in the town centre. I think it would look wonderful, and as Councillor Horton said, you know, great unifying sort of statement. But I do think that it is worth us noting A, the portion of the budget that it would take up, and B, the fact that on a Jubilee celebration that is thematically environmental, that we'll chop up a load of trees, chuck it in a beacon and burn it for how many days. That said, I would love to see this happen. I think we've got two councillors, Councillor Ayres and Councillor Horton. Since it's more directly, Councillor Horton first, and then we'll come back to you since you spoke last, Councillor Ayres.
It's just, yeah, you raised a good point, and actually just playing devil's advocate myself a little bit. Would the Melksham Lights be able to do something just as powerful and just as meaningful? I'm not sure our limitations. That would equate to a more modern beacon, as opposed to.
You can get some really lovely, it can be seen for many more miles indeed than a beacon. So we'll go to Councillor Ayres, then Councillor Ayres, Councillor Mortimer, and then we'll come to Miriam.
Is this another item that could be stored and used again?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
it wouldn't be a waste of money then.
Oh no, I wasn't saying it would be a waste. I was just saying it would be
just thinking,
expensive.
a point in its favour. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
But no, thank you. Yes, it's an incredibly worthwhile point. That if we as a community buy these things like the bunting or the beacon, wouldn't this be wonderful to bring out? You know, just think how much more remarkable our town celebrations would be if we drag out the beacon every time. Councillor Mortimer.
I quite like the one where you construct your own beacon media, and the comments on there is that it's a permanent reminder, so as if it's in a permanent position.
Yes, and there's a construction that looks rather similar to this at the top of Westbury Whitehorse. It is a replica of the sort of beacons they would use to symbolise an invasion. And I understand it's not really lit very often, but yes, when I was going through, I thought, that to me, that more traditional design sort of appealed the most.
Yeah, it sort of like makes a comment that it could be a tourist attraction for your area.
Yeah, well, like the one in Westbury, actually, people do go up to it. In fact, none of Westbury, right? Bratton Campus, the historic part, and no one goes there to look at it. Miriam, you wanted to quickly.
Just taking on from Councillor Horton's point about the Christmas lights, he's very good at putting lights in the sky from the top of the town hall. And also Westbury will be lighting a beacon, probably in that same spot. But the thing about Westbury is they've got a high place where a beacon is substantially effective, whereas in Melksham we haven't necessarily got a high place where it would be.
Maybe Paul's challenge is to try and create a beacon effect on top of the town hall with lasers.
Quite importantly, we're a historically flat county. Beacons historically go
It's going all the time.
whenever we want to give a message like the beacon. Councillor Horton, sorry.
Regard as well, it would need to be a lot less risk assessed than potentially a beacon that would be cancelled. It would be left there, sort of, I guess it would be attended, but it would still free up maybe someone's time.
It's got naked flames. I think one of the proposals is just to have a huge bonfire. I think we were remarking just how on earth they get the risk assessment through in Northern Ireland. think we would struggle. But I mean, that is one healthy looking bonfire, isn't it?
It's pretty
And of
consistent.
course, they have to
It
be
is.
constructed on the day they're lit.
Oh,
Because dry out.
Because of the hedgehogs of the, they could creep in and start living in there.
not in the
Creating
middle of
habitat.
June, later, not in the middle of June.
I think we'd still have to create it on the day, just in case any little creatures got in there.
I think these people are rightfully proud
Yeah, they
of what they've constructed, but perhaps that in our marketplace would be
I think that's a
and-
step too far.
and indeed in our park, think of the grass that we'd have to replace afterwards.
Yeah.
But that said, if you go to Broughton Gifford, they have
Yeah.
sort of less well presented, but certainly a bonfire that would rival that in magnitude. So it is doable in public spaces if that's what people were minded to do. Councillor Mortimer,
Yeah, I'm really against the gas one.
you don't want the gas one.
And but I just wondered about the beacon brazier, whether they could we could have sort of like a bacon brazier that's actually lit by the Christmas lighting, so it looks like it's
We want to have this sort of design,
yeah,
but lighting instead.
I don't know whether that would work.
That's wonderful. It does remind me of Miriam's point in that beacons historically go on hills. So I suppose Bower Hill is or Sandridge Hill is a hill, isn't it?
Yeah.
Near the town, but it's not actually, both of those hills lie outside of our boundaries, don't they?
Yeah, because they're all private.
They are. So I suppose the question is, which of course not saying we shouldn't do any of this. I would love to whack out a beacon in the town celebrations, but a point we would have to consider is where do we put one of these that A, can stand the test of time and will be a charming monument in the town for years to come, but B, can be lit, monitored and maintained in a sort of safe fashion. Councillor Hall.
I mean, I am more leaning now towards maybe saving a bit more money with this, because it is always a factor, and going towards the light through, and actually seeing if Paul can do something quite remarkable that's different.
It'd be quite lovely to see just to what extent he could create a shot of light coming up from the town hall.
Yeah.
Which again, we could use on things like Part in the Park, which conventionally happen at night. We could, you'd see that from Chipping. Sorry, I think it's Councillor Mortimer first. Then Councillor Lewis, did you wave to me? No, so it's Councillor Hayes. Did you? Okay, Councillor Mortimer and Councillor Hayes.
I suppose it'll be the same wherever you are, whatever you do, but it's going to be quite light, isn't it, in the evening? So quite.
For quite a while. Is why we've got. Oh, Miriam, if you've got some.
Just that their scheduled time is 9:15. So the Beacon organisation is suggesting that everyone around the country do it at 9:15. So you read a certain speech, the town crier says something, there's a poem, there's a timings, but it's all just after 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that would be certainly quite something nice in the marketplace here, then, wouldn't it? With
Yes, I think one of the proposals to have a road closure. We'll go to Council Hall, and I think we should take this one to an end and go through, and perhaps we will shortlist. I'm sorry, Council Hall and Councillor Aves, and then you would be until we come to a shortlist. I think we should draw an end to this particular item because we can talk about beacons till the council.
So we have managed it with saying that you can see it. You can see it.
Wonderful. Councillor Aves.
For reasons of sheer practicality, I think we need to think about lighting on the town hall rather than anything that's using gas or building a bonfire or a beacon.
Yeah, certainly there are safety and financial and practical there are considerations. So perhaps if this goes through to a shortlist, we can have a quick straw poll vote as to whether we want brazier with wood or lighting, which I think they're the two suggestions that we haven't ruled out in discussions. If I'm being too prescriptive, do shout.
I'm just thinking in terms of the equality and biodiversity. If we could,
Personally,
it would really prevent that.
yeah, I mean, personally speaking, I would favour a lighting approach simply for the fact that the one thing the Queen's asked us to do is to plant trees, so cut them down and burning them to me.
What you're throwing into the atmosphere and everything else.
Yeah,
that goes
it's, you've
with
got
it.
the party
It doesn't sit right to me.
No, just that's despite the fact that I do love a beacon.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big fan of the beacon and a bonfire. So these are all things I love, but I just think, particularly on an event that we're planting trees, perhaps not burn them. But that's my 2 cents worth. Right, classic car rally. Now, this one I think I might have a slightly biased view on, as I'm a big fan of both classic cars and rallying. So I would sooner hear the views of the room. That's the whole.
I think it's wonderful as classic cars are, and I would agree with you. I think when you think about maybe possibly stalls being around and whether we opened up the makers market within that town centre, I think we could probably get in the realm of having too much going on. I think in some respects, looking at sometimes little is more.
That is a very good point. I mean, one of the suggestions that were banded around to see whether Cooper Tyres would lend us their car park to have the classic cars there. And I believe that we were looking at closing the town centre to try and have our celebrations focused there. So no, I do take your point, and I don't want to railroad this through. But I think that we needn't be too concerned about sort of parking it on the town square. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the idea if you could get it in Cooper Tyres car park, got things in the marketplace, it's encouraging people to walk through the town.
Well, yes, quite. They'll go from the marketplace up and probably visit a few pubs on the way back down.
There is a classic car display as part of the Shore Village Fair, which is taking place on Saturday the 4th. So there is a very nearby.
They've scuppered us to it, is that what you're saying? Well, that's a devastating blow, isn't it?
Then have to walk to shore.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Councillor Reeves.
Let Shaw do it.
You know, when I saw this year, my heart did leap for joy, but I did think it was perhaps a touch too ambitious. We could do it.
You could have a train around town. You could have something in King George. You could have some on the marketplace. You could ask Cooper Tyres. There's lots of places that you could put
Wouldn't that be
and do a
marvellous?
train around the town.
Wouldn't that be marvellous?
Yes, let's
Let's put that for something else. Let's
Yes.
not try and do the same thing. now.
That's a car weekend, Simon. How about that?
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah, we say so.
Yes. Right. Well, next item, fair with stalls. I'd like to sort of open up. Anyone have any sort of thoughts whether we should host a fair with stalls? Councillor Price first, Councillor Reeves.
Yeah, and this will go into a little bit of the next on the list there as well. But yeah, I just think that could be a fair with stalls. We have the makers market. Let's get all of our local businesses, everyone we can. I mean, the Assembly Hall was suggested here. I think it'd be good to have it on the street, like a good old-fashioned street party. Get everyone out there as much as we can. I think again, yeah, I can't see any issue there. Anything that can promote smaller businesses as well. So, yeah, just get everything out there.
That's it. Thank you, Councillor Reeves.
Well, I've already been invited to a street party in the street where I live.
Oh, lovely.
So I'm sure that ours isn't going to be the only one putting the street party on. It'll be in the afternoon, but I don't see why there should be one in the high street as well. I mean, you know. I
think are we talking about discussing these two as one, having sort of out of the town centre, the stalls, the businesses? Wonderful. Councillor Mortimer, you wanted to
Yeah, just that street party.
I don't know yet either.
Well, this is Saturday. Parties of the
Sunday, probably, yeah.
I just think it would be good to have the assembly hall as well, because I have a wet day in June.
Yeah,
you can, that is perfectly possible to have.
yeah, we did for one of the jubilees, for the last jubilee, didn't we? And we all ended up in the assembly hall.
How inconsiderate of the weather, Councillor Orton.
I think just to echo what I said earlier, let's connect with people who are already in the makers market, get them involved, and just bring in local stalls. I think both ideas of the street party and the stalls would be amazing idea to go along with the celebration. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, yeah, I think I agree with everyone in the room here as well. I think it would be wonderful to close the high street, and the legislation is being extended. In fact, it would be permanent legislation to allow cafes to spill out. And I think if we invited them, the cafes and the shops and whomever else wants to spill out onto the high street with all of the bunting, with our massive beacon and everything else, I think it'd be a wonderful. I mean, the only thing that would make it better is a classic car show at the top of the town, but that's sadly not possible. But I think it'd be wonderful to have this sort of atmosphere where we could sort of stroll around and see the delights of Melksham. Councillor Ames.
What about the car park? I mean, if the high street's closed, how are people going to use the car park?
Which one?
The main one, Church.
The one in the middle. Well, I mean, Melksham is gifted with an abundance of parking. So, I mean, I think
Probably have to do, what's that thing called, a diversion?
because I mean, we've got
Come in
King
from
Street,
top,
we
yeah.
have the 2 supermarkets, we've got the library. So I mean, and depending on where we close it, you'd have the Union Street one as well. I mean, it's still Melksham, I think, has got more space, car parking space than Chippenham, which is about 3.5 times the population of Melksham. So we are very rich in car parking capacity, I think.
I can foresee a few grumbles.
I'm sure you can, and with your experience, I'm sure that is well evidenced. But to my mind, we either do the celebrations or not. And there's limited amounts that we can do in terms of bringing everyone in. If we don't, we can close the high street.
Well, I suppose if they only came in one way and could go down to the car park and could only come out that way, that would make it a bit easier. But you know what people are like with their cars.
But then there's if I really want to go and attend that, I'll make sure I can get there. It's not for us to worry about how people live in the park. Probably let's do it, and then
Okay, all right, okay.
If you have residents complaining, just blame one of us.
It'll be too late by the time it's done.
Councillor Mortimer and Councillor Price.
Just wondered whether it was placed from the marketplace to.
That's what I was sort of envisaging, that we have the town centre closed from the marketplace up, but then I mean we do have bypass and we have parking both ends and the side of the town centre. And forgive me for being really naive, but can't be Richard. We're losing one of our 6 or 7 car parks in town centre.
Are you closing it from the marketplace down to Lowbourne then? Is that what?
where we do at Christmas, the roundabout going out. So it'd be from there up to
They managing like the car park.
And the high street, it was packed with people for the.
And it will encourage people to walk in instead.
It will active transport, I think we call it now, not walking for some reason, but absolutely names for all these things. Councillor Price, you are next.
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit, talk about the car parks as well. I think there are plenty of car parks around, and to be fair, I know I'll be doing this on this day. I imagine most people walk down to the England pub and have a couple of pints, so I don't think many people will be worried about driving, and those that are worried about driving will certainly have plenty of parking. And if they're really, really concerned, I'm sure we could have a word of Cooper. They already offer a car park for several events, and I'm sure they would offer the car park if we wanted it for that.
Coopers would surpass the capacity of the car park that would be using massively.
They're normally
Wonderful, thank you for that idea. Councillor Mortimer.
I don't know whether there'd be, you could park at the football ground and do a park and ride in or something like that. Whether that's possible.
It is. We're just adding extra complications to the event. So I think if people want to attend, we leave it up to them to get in.
Yeah, so I mean, we're budgeting 2 things here. A, the financial considerations, but B is the incredibly precious officers' time. And of course, if we offer a park and ride, we then have to deliver on a park and ride. And it's sod's law that thousands of people will turn up and we're all drawn to trying to ferry people in from the football ground. Whereas Melksham's not a huge town. Even if you're from from Melksham East, it's a perfectly walkable distance, isn't it? Well, I used to walk to Melksham from Bower Hill regularly. it's
I'll walk in from being later.
it's not terribly.
I just think that would, there are probably events going on at the football ground as well, so it could complicate, but it's like, where are we going to get the bus drivers from?
Right. Well, I think the next one, marketplace party, is sort of with that as well, isn't it? I think we've discussed those in one, and it's lovely to see that we're all quite happy about it. This one speaks to some of the concerns that you raised, Councillor Mortimer, which is afternoon tea and cake in the Assembly Hall with a screening of the coronation. I suggested that we could ticket it to cover the costs. What do we think of this?
I wanted to actually add to this because are we also discussing the cinema in it being shown in the Assembly Hall, aren't we? Is there scope for it to be shown on the screen outside the town hall also?
I mean, there is this the next item, which is to rent a large screen and projector and have a sort of open air cinema in King George V. But
I just walk well alongside it, and there's no harm in having it in the Assembly Hall on the screen in front of the town hall. And
I mean, in terms of the cakes, I would assume that this would be something that we could advertise for people to make cakes and bring them. I think that's something, sort of bring and share kind of thing. And I think that people would be highly amenable to doing that. That's where it is.
Well, one of the ideas that I put down for uses of the park was a picnic. I'd say there's picnic actually, but if we were to have the big screen in the park and advertise it as a picnic, and then people would bring their own goodies, and just have the Assembly Hall as a backup if it rains.
Should we go on to that one? So it's just to finish on this afternoon tea and cake, sort of a tea party. I'll come to you in just a second, Councillor Price. One thing I do like about this idea is that it draws a focal point onto the whole reason why we're doing this, which is Her Majesty's coronation, subsequent reign. And I think just from the historical perspective, that'd be a rather nice offering. And there will be people coming to these celebrations that will like to see something thematically royal. And bunting and parties and takeaways and stuff and beacons are all wonderful, but they're not terribly jubilee other than it's a celebration. Councillor Price.
Yeah, I'm going to sound very boring now. I like the tea cake idea. With everyone bringing their own cakes in and either saying not sharing it or whatever, is there any health and safety implications of me making a cake and then giving it to someone and they get ill?
There must be a way around this, though, because it's something that we do at church. In that, I suppose there's just an understanding if your disease is on your head, if you eat my cake. But I think there must be a way around this because it is something that is done, isn't it? So yeah, I think so. Actually, you can have there's a word for this type of consent that simply by walking past a sign, you acknowledge that you've taken. Yeah. So, for example, if you go into the BBC, you'll pass a sign that says you consent to being recorded, and that is the property of the BBC, and they can broadcast over the world. Simply by walking past that sign, you're deemed to have given consent.
I think if no
Perhaps-
money's changing hands, it's different as well.
Yeah, because it's
You meet
free.
at your own peril.
Yeah, and so we say that every effort we could issue guidelines about when we're asking people to make the cakes, we could say look, ensure that you've got your allergens on a list and you thoroughly clean your kitchen, wash your hands, make sure you're not shedding too much hair, and then have as I say, whilst every effort is going into you understand that with any baked good there is a risk of getting ill, particularly if you eat my goddaughter's cakes. I can't quite sort of neglected my duties in that who is next to speak. I think Councillor Hayes, you've been trying to chip in for a little while, haven't you? So if we get Councillor Hayes, Councillor Ford and Councillor Mortimer.
I was just going to say about the allergies, I think that's really important.
Yes.
When you look at what's in the cake,
Yeah, if once I mean, when making a cake, it's not terribly difficult to scribble down on a piece of paper what you put in it is there. So yeah, I think it is, yes, very good. So Councillor Hayes, Councillor Horton.
I just wanted to say I've seen it, the coronation. I was 4 when it was on TV.
Well, I can't believe that, Councillor Hayes, but yeah, unfortunately, I was born towards the end of that same millennium. But as a consequence of
It'd be
that,
nice to see it in colour though, because it was all little 12-inch black and white TVs.
I've seen clips of it, but I haven't actually watched the entire
My neighbours
thing.
came round.
Yeah, well, we can recreate that in our assembly halls, wouldn't that be?
That would be
Yeah,
good.
and that whole thing of us all piling in and watching it on that. Yeah, I think that's.
But I
sure
do
wonderful.
think it'd be nicer if it was kind of free rather than ticketed, because
Well,
I mean you can only get about 400 people in the assembly hall, can't you, seated?
mhm.
And if and you couldn't eat cakes and drink tea in there, but they could in the park.
They could do, and also, bringing your own cake then means that we don't have to buy it. So presumably, actually
We
only
don't want to be
project.
involved in catering.
Yeah.
it would merely then be the cost of our officer time.
Yeah.
I think it's Councillor Horton and then Councillor Price.
So I was actually going to be a bit of a downer and ask about the cost. Does this all factor in the assembly hall usage and officer time within it? Because I'm just worried that, I know we're shortlisting for now, but obviously it can be quite easy to get carried away and reach that 8K mark.
Do we have to rent the assembly hall for ourselves?
You can grant use of the assembly hall for community events,
We
because
can
it
give
is a
ourselves a
community
grant.
hall, isn't it?
Wonderful.
But what we can do is do environment from the community budget to pay for the assembly hall, but we don't pay any money and we don't receive any money. That makes sense.
With that in
Like-
mind, would we have to pay royalties for screening the coronation?
We need to
Who
find
owns that
out.
footing?
Yeah, we
That's
need to
something
find
to. But I suppose,
Might be out of date, mightn't it?
Because it's
it might be
something
as an
like,
archive.
Yeah, it's 15
And if we're not ticketing it,
if it's free and it's for part of the celebrations for the town, I
So-
think.
with that in mind, with our sort of, slightly reimagined sort of free bring and share and we'll pile in that wonderful spirit, I don't think it need cost much at all.
No.
Apart from a bit of preparation, perhaps some sort of, paper coverings for the tables and plates and stuff, all recyclable, of course.
And St. people would come for nothing, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Right, well, okay, I think we've discussed that one enough now. Cinema and King George V with films and screening of the Jubilee. So this, I suppose, is whether we take what we're doing in the Assembly Hall, pop it in King George V. Open to question. Point. Councillor Hall.
Is there any harm in, as I said, doing both and even having it on the screen outside the town hall at the same time? Have it in 3 locations as you're walking through the town?
Give everyone the Jubilee.
Everyone.
Wherever they are.
No one can say that they
Put
live
it
in
in-
Melksham and they haven't seen the Queen
In
crown.
all of the pubs, wherever you are, wherever there's a screen,
yeah.
you're having the Jubilee.
Guess
like-
to carry on TV as well.
Yes, I think Councillor Rennes is there itching to walk around with a board and a Jubilee screening on him. I think Councillor Mortimer, Councillor Price, and then the Councillor News.
Yeah, sorry, I see this as 2 different events, because you've got the coronation and you've got Jubilee. Jubilee, what's going on there.
Oh, so would this be screening of BBC coverage then, presumably?
Probably, yeah. Is that what was in mind? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
So
two
two
separate
separate things. One is the nostalgic remembering of the coronation, and the other is current celebration of what's going on.
Right, wonderful. Councillor Price and Councillor Hayes.
So not saying I don't like the idea, it's been a bit of a downer again. Officers' time and that kind of thing, obviously there's a lot going on. If we want to do this big street party, we want to do this thing in the Assembly Hall, which we want to do, possibly want to do the photographs up here. That's a lot of people dotted around everywhere. Then to have a big screen in the park, not saying don't do it. Obviously, with all the officers that need to have time to run and manage that, do we have a set of volunteers as well that tend? I know we have volunteers that do tend to help. But normally, will we get enough to realistically fulfil this? You know how many people you have
I think
more
we
than
could,
anyone else.
alongside publicity for the events, I think we could ask for any volunteers that might want to help. We've got 75 to help with the sorting of all items that were donated for Ukraine. So I'm sure we could get a band of willing volunteers with the officers and councillors. We would be able to facilitate these events.
Maybe just what I mean.
A very valid question to raise.
Yeah.
Want to make sure we had the time you guys know better than anyone to make sure we have the bodies before we start saying yes to everything.
And the other thought, we can put this just as a not to forget, the afternoon tea cake in the Assembly Hall or in KGB. The Assembly Hall could be the backup for if it's absolutely raining and that one can't go ahead. So we could be a little bit flexible so we don't disappoint.
Right, I think next we had Councillor Ayes and then Councillor Horton.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up about volunteers. I was going to say there are 15 councillors and I would expect them to at least offer their services if they weren't required. Can we have a cardboard cutout of the Queen, please, so that I can take another photograph? Get another photograph of myself with the Queen, please. Thank you. And she really isn't very tall because when I went to the garden, yeah, she's really tiny.
So anyway, I thought I was short, but she's not short.
Yeah.
We've got Councillor Horton and Councillor Mortimer.
Yeah, just on Councillor Price's point, again, the school has a media club, and actually getting them involved in setting up the whole KGB screening might be actually really good for them.
It's a very good idea. Councillor Mortimer.
I was just going to say, I've got loads of royalty masks.
Have you? I wonder. The 15 councillors could all be the royal family marshalling the events. So, what it's worth, I mean, I think there are, again, I don't want to poo-poo ideas, but I think two items of reservation that I have about this, which is that we have open air cinemas in Bowood and Laycock. They're done to a phenomenally high standard. So there is sort of competition on this front. And secondly, it has occurred to me that if our celebrations are town centre focused, particularly south of Lowball, how well attended and how are we going to use King George V Park? Is this going to be in isolation? You can go watch the BBC in King George V if you want, whilst everyone else is having samosas in the town centre. What's the connect between the two? And I went to University in Swansea and they spent an absolute fortune in Castle Square putting this huge television where they predominantly just show the BBC, and no one watches it because they can watch BBC back home. But they're just 2 points that I thought we consider. Are we just going to be creating a £1,000 television in King George V when all the parties here, and will people make that walk? Councillor Price.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And another thing to bear in mind is if we do have a big street party with all the stalls on the streets, we can have loads of food vendors there. And how good would it be to be eating the food of local visitors? It's nice to bring picnic, of course, but having that community thing all in the town centre.
Yeah, I think the bob in your local.
If we encourage that, it could be.
Yeah, but I think you make a really good point. I mean, I'm not saying that you definitely shouldn't do this. I think if we are going to, particularly with competition, we need to do it really well. And there has to be some sort of link between the two. It's just a screen on its own in the park, I think, would be rather sparse. Just because Councillor Lewis hasn't spoken all that much, I give Councillor Lewis first and then to Councillor Wilson.
Just to say about certain residents like the elderly, etc. Picnic in a park would be very difficult.
Accessibility.
Whereas sitting in Assembly Hall chairs, I just think it would be nicer for that age group or other people that find it quite difficult.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan and Councillor Gooch.
So what I sort of envision is maybe we have stalls also in the KGB, so it creates that reach around, and actually introducing ahead of time a Jubilee map, so everyone knows what's going on where, and there's actually a route you can follow to actually see what's around the whole town.
I think that's really important to do, actually. I think it's a very valid point. If we were to have some sort of map the town with the bits that are going on.
There is the beginnings of a calendar, so this sort of showing
Yes.
what's happening where, when, but then that could be expanded. Because there are 4 days and 4 locations.
We should do a
Yeah.
programme,
And-
shouldn't we?
Someone with a very linear sort of thought process like me, this is very informative, very useful. But to some people, more lateral things, I think more council raised days. Yeah, it would be wonderful. No, but yes, to do both as well. I mean, the advantage of this format, of course, is it's very easy to publish, whereas a map has to be much larger. But certainly, I think we need to do that.
And I thought about having stalls in the KGB also would sort of allow people to also have a reason to go to the KGB and not miss out.
I think you do make a point, and that sort of counters one of the concerns that I had, which is this just going to be a screen in the middle of a field, a 10-minute walk away from the celebrations, or is it going to be something that channels through to it? And certainly, I think the limiting factor then would be vendors. Do we have enough to create this wonderful big thoroughfare through, or is it going to be two sort of things in isolation? I think if it is the latter, I think we should be cautious, because we would open ourselves to a lot of criticism if we have this big screen showing the BBC and people saying, why am I paying £1,000 to watch iPlayer? Or something you can watch on your phone, because what we're envisaging showing there is just the BBC coverage of the Jubilee, but it's not like we're doing Shakespeare Live or something, a cultural edition. That if we're doing, I love the idea of open air cinemas and theatres and stuff, but what are we showing? Councillor Mortimer?
Yeah, I was just going to say, really, I agree with what you're saying. I don't think this is the place to have a cinema. I think, not on the Jubilee, not showing the BBC, because people couldn't see that themselves, or they could be in the clubs and level.
Yeah.
I do think that it would be nice to have something going on in the park. People could bring their own picnics, and I think some of the people probably will want to join and go to parks. And if we could get enough interest for stall holders, I think Paul's idea is really good. But personally, I don't think there's any need for a cinema. Not on that day. It'd be nice to have something in the future.
Certainly. I mean, I really love the idea of open air cinemas.
Get the splash pad.
It will be, which will be a wonderful attraction as well, and a great sort of base from which to have this sort of picnic culture. And where are we at? I know we discussed in our in the full council meeting where we decided our budget about usage of the cafe. Was there anyone who could provide refreshments from that?
We will make sure that we can,
Wonderful.
Report going to council on the cafe.
Oh, great, because it would be a shame to have picnic goers and the potential of an open air cinema, and then have that lovely community facility empty. Well, I think we discussed that enough to come to a conclusion when we shortlist things. So we've only got 3 more items, and I've lost Miriam's wager of when I would conclude the meeting. So with that in mind, let's go on to the silent disco. Okay, right. Fantastic. 2 people eagerly wanting to speak to it, and I was so deep in thought I didn't see who was first. So should we go ladies first?
I've heard friends that have gone to a wedding and see the silent disco, and they think they're brilliant because you can have like 3 generations there, and people are able to talk. If you go to a disco,
This is one of the things that annoys me most when you see clubs on films, is that they all seem to have a conversation, whereas I go out and I'm sort of like got tinnitus and shouting at people when I eventually do get outside.
But with the silent disco, and it looks really strange because people are all doing different things. It's quite a hoot, really.
And it's something that's been proposed by a community member at no cost, and actually, once we've finished our screening of the original coronation, we've got a lot of people in an empty room and a lot of different music we can play in headphones, have with a little dance. I think Councillor Councillor Price.
I like the idea, and you answered one of my questions, Sue. I think one of my reservations about the silent disco were residents being able to, I want to try one, but it seems like it excludes you by having that on and dancing. My other thing with a silent disco was when it's free, when do we draw the line having to turn people away because too many people might be interested in it and there might not be enough headphones.
That's wonderful. Miriam's got a response.
Yeah, so I've been speaking with Izzy, so it's something that she's proposed. It would be a ticket price. She reckons £8 would cover it. And with a deposit for the headset. So she's worked out all the things, she's got the DJ, she's costed it all. The total cost will be about £1,000, but she would cover that all with the ticket cost. So it's basically an event that is unusual. And to answer your question about being isolated, I've been to one before, and you actually are more connected with people because you find the people in the room who are dancing to the same tune as you, because you can tell who's dancing.
Depends who's dancing.
So you have to meet up.
It's more connective than you would think it would be. It's a very specific kind of magical experience. And so Issy wants to basically contribute this as part of Jubilee. To a theme at Jubilee, it would be dress in red, white and blue, or in a royal sort of theme, and then have the different channels so it's accessible for everyone. But then she would be in charge of covering the costs of it with the ticket price if we make the venue available. That's right.
So to clarify, we would be facilitating this rather than hosting it.
Easy. It's an easy.
Yeah, it is. I think Councillor Price first and Councillor Mortimer.
Thank you very much. I've been to a few silent discos in my youth. Yeah, they're good. I enjoyed them. Yeah, one thing I would say is, well, I'm not saying every company is different, I understand that, but I've been to several, and everyone I've been to, at some point, there's always been some kind of issue with the headphones, because if you're switching through certain songs, you do tend to have, the ones I've been to, a fair few issues with the headphones. You at times you see people swapping headphones and heading back to the main bit on several occasions in a night because something's gone wrong. I'm not saying it will hit, but just something to bear in mind with a normal disco. There's not much going on with that. And also with COVID, I understand that we're on our way out now and there's not many restrictions left anymore. Are we going to be in between every time someone takes the headphone and gives it away, being cleaned and prepared before give it back to someone else? Again, with a normal disco, it's in and out, in and out. We don't have that concern. So just...
I think there are 2 points raised there. I think in terms of COVID guidelines, I think it's probably impossible to predict just what we're going to be faced with as a new variant. So I don't think we can really plan for that, other than that that there is a political determination to allow events like this to go ahead, and of course that catering other venues like that. So I think if it came to the point where we'd have to take mitigating factors, that's something we'd have to take place at the time. But even with today's sort of COVID guidelines, such an event could go ahead. And I think in the summer we should be in a slightly better place with regards to COVID, although I'm not at all qualified to say that. However, the second point you raise is a very good one. And has Izzy had experience of running these before, I suppose?
Not running them, but she's working with DJs who have run them before.
Izzy will have some experience being brought in.
Yeah, I'm not saying necessarily anything will go wrong, but with a normal disco, there's never an issue when you've got 500 headphones. Electrics tend to make mistakes sometimes. That's a lot of different headphones to. I mean, we know what electrics like with what we've had here in the past.
You know, from a personal perspective, I usually go to sort of lower end nightclubs, so things do tend to get wrong. That's worth noting, but it's also comforting to know that we'll have some experienced DJs that hopefully have done these sorts of things before, and we'll have some more reliable kit. The next one, 70s or 80s. So, that's beg my pardon.
I was actually going to make the same point as what COVID,
Right.
is obviously like a case, and you know what I mean? People are going to be doing their hands every time. Because it, you know, it hasn't actually gone away yet, has it?
No.
But the other thing I was going to say, it could prove quite fruitful if silent disco become quite popular, right? Future at this kind of thing, monthly basis.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's quite attractive about it to me, in that silent discos, you can have, you know, multiple different genres, sort of bring communities together, and actually is quite within sort of keeping of the ethos of the Jubilee, you know, national celebration, bring everyone in the same room. I thought it was a rather lovely idea, but none of us have a diktat, do we? Have to see what the people want. 70s, 80s soul disco night. There are two options. Anyone have? Oh, Miriam, I think.
Can I just explain? So this is similar to the silent disco offer in that Maurice Mangini has suggested that he could run the event himself, and he takes all the money and covers the costs with the ticket price, or that the town council decide to put it on for free, in which case he would need a fee of £300.
What about the 50s? They came to was
60s.
I'm just thinking of
52.
52.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, 52. So 50s.
It's
like the fashion of the 50s
Bing
as well.
Crosby and people like that then. It wasn't rock and roll, but it was nice. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, I suppose the genre.
A bit later on.
Yes, I think we're talking more in principle at the moment. So I suppose there's two things: whether we want sort of you know, louder disco over a silent one, and then whether we want to host it as an event or people decide. I think Councillor Hall's first, then Price, and then that's where it is.
If this is going into a short list and then it's going to be explored later, are we sort of in a position to exclude any one item at this point, or would that go to full council?
Yeah, absolutely. So from discussing these, what I'd sort of envisaged is that we would say absolutely no to that or whatever. Say perhaps that we have our sort of core town council offering of the things we say we absolutely do want to do, and then say that, you know, with our time and budgetary resources, there are X number of options left, and we should invite the community to decide. Because the last thing we want to do is to go to all this time and effort and no one turns up. So it's got to be what people want. But similarly, there might be things that we think actually, as a town council event to commemorate the Jubilee, this is, you know, something we should do. That's what I thought. But of course, there's no diktat, and so we can decide the method through which we choose those ourselves.
I only ask because I just think with these two options, is it worth debating it now when we will be debating it later, or will we not be debating?
Well, quite actually. So I think that is a good point. And if there's overwhelming support from the consultation, well, then perhaps it's not we'd offer for free. But whereas if it was sort of just made the cut, perhaps it wouldn't be worthwhile the town council subsidising it for everyone if there's only a niche of people that would want it. Yes. And I think it was Councillor Price and then Councillor Ayres and then Councillor Mortimer. They did.
Thank you. Well, by the sounds of it, we're talking quite a lot about, you know, we mentioned about silent disco and now this. I think it'd be good to hold something there. If we don't have to agree with that right now. But silent disco or a disco that could even go to public concert. We can ask, as simple as on Facebook, we can ask the residents in the Melksham News, what do they prefer? It's something that we clearly want to hold something. Yeah, and you're right, we don't need to decide right now what one it is. If we did go for the disco, I think it'd be wise to get someone else just to do it, to take away any risk away from us. That's just takes away all the officers' time, any risk, any price from us, to get someone else to do it.
And I would agree with you as well. If people want to go to something, they will, rather than saying, you know, we'll pay for it. But so, you know, that means that everyone pays for it, and perhaps only 5-10% of the people that are celebrating want to do it.
It makes it a lot easier for us, and
it means more resources for our people.
And if we were, not even noughties as well, please come and play music for me. Some high and spicy on this thing.
Right, it was Councillor Ayres next, and then Councillor Mortimer.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Tom said. If I got it all correctly. If Izzy and Morris want to run discos, let them get on with it. They've got 3 or maybe 4 nights that they could do it. And if it's not going to affect us any more than just letting the hall, then just let them get on with it. And I'm sure there'll be a success. I'm sure that there'll be people going to them. But I think as a town council, we could do without that one. Those 2. Just let them be commercial enterprises.
Yeah, facilitate it.
Facilitate it,
Perhaps
and advertise it for them. But
don't buy a ticket for everyone in the town.
no.
Wonderful. Councillor Mortimer.
I think I just want to make the same point as what's happening. We've got more than just a Saturday night, you've got Thursday night and Friday night, spending on.
It's also true. I think that's sparked major concern.
We don't have Friday nights as there's a private party booked in, but we do have the Thursday and the Saturday, and I understand there's Sunday you've got booking in.
Yeah.
So our main day that we have the Assembly Hall is the Saturday day and night.
I think will be the focal point of the celebrations anyway, because most people work.
Yeah,
and
that's a
therefore-
holiday.
It's bank holiday.
Oh yeah, we've got a 4-day bank holiday, haven't we? Yeah, Friday.
So Sunday night would be a goer.
To Sunday, yeah. Once church.
No,
Sunday.
It's the bank holidays, the Thursday, the Friday, the Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, right.
Back to work on Monday, I'm afraid.
Well, that's just really different.
Yeah.
So the Thursday is the
So we tell because I must book the Monday of work.
Yeah, if you want to rave in a disco in the Assembly Hall, yeah.
5-day
Yeah.
bank holiday. I know I'm doing tomorrow. Right. Okay, well, I think unless
Yeah, I just think you could do the silent disco on the Saturday.
there's capacity for both.
80s on the
Yeah,
Thursday.
yes, sir. And particularly since there's
They'll
no,
do it.
there's potentially no financial implication. There's a bit of admin time.
And the hire of the Assembly Hall, I'm
no.
not sure where that's going to be covered. But again, that's something we can drill down.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something we think we should be
If it's part
offering,
of the
it's-
celebrations and
Yeah.
the ticket prices aren't crazy.
Yeah.
yeah. If we told them not to take the mix, yeah.
As long as he's just covering the cost, which from
Yeah.
what I can see is the disco, the DJ, that's.
Doesn't cost and touch a bit. Yeah,
But we can have the bar open.
Salvio.
yeah, which will make us some money.
Everybody wins.
Yeah, wonderful. Right, now, last before we start to whittle them down, picnic in the park. I think we've probably already discussed this in principle,
Yeah.
because we wanted to have people in the park, people have stalls up there. So I think we have probably discussed it. Unless there's something that anyone would like to say before we go to. Yeah, that's great.
Just to say that if the splash pad's open and it's a nice day, there'll be a picnic in the park anyway, whether we organise one or not.
Well, quite.
Especially
Quite.
if the pavilion's open.
And even if it's just saying, please do bring it when we make our maps, we could simply just say,
Yeah.
please bring a picnic.
The trees, though, to make it all right.
Very pretty.
What I was thinking with this one was on the Sunday to sort of like finish off, but if there was money to actually hire in a Helter Skelter, have Punch and Judy and a few other bits and pieces going on, with maybe some busking from musicians from the Oak,
That would make
it was just to give it some atmosphere, but I think Helter Skelter and sort of like that kind of era of.
That's quite nice, isn't it? Yeah. Something for the sort of younger families as well,
Yeah.
which is away from what might be a bit more of a sort of louder,
Yeah.
maybe, don't want to cause assertions on people at Melksham, but they might want to drink in the town centre at the celebration. You want to have something a bit quiet and out of the way as well. That'll be a really lovely atmosphere, so you're not just sitting in a field.
Yeah. So we can-
Wonderful.
wouldn't
Right.
be that expensive, isn't it?
No, and so very good points have been raised throughout all of this. And one of the things I was made aware of at the beginning is that, whilst if we can convince full council of it, we can appropriate funding. So I don't think actually, I think we could probably finance all of these if we were so minded with the total amount of money we could appropriate. Whether our constituents think that's a good use of money is another question, so we would have to discuss. But I think the limiting factor in all of this is obviously time. And we do to take advice from our officers here tonight as to just how much we can do. Because it's both unreasonable to expect our officers to do more than they physically can, and also it will lead to a worse celebration. We'll go Councillor Price, Councillor Mortimer.
If I could, so Fight in the Park isn't going ahead this year. And as far as I'm aware, as you said, it's because there's not enough people in the committee anymore that want to really do it.
Yes.
Can we not get them on board with us? Can we not have the Jubilee from Melksham Town Association with Part in the Park? Can we not get whoever wants to do a Part in the Park, but there's not enough members to do it? Jump in with us. It's going to be a lot easier for everyone to organise it. They do this every year. They're experts in their field.
Well, certainly
They're not be heavily involved in, if they wanted to, of course, invite them over.
I think, yeah, I mean, the stalls and everything, there's no reason why we wouldn't invite them to our council
As well, it's a lot easier for potentially for you guys who have a lot of time.
I've sort of tentatively broached it with someone from the committee, but I think it's numbers. And I think that what's left of the committee are a bit concerned about the commitment to support an event like that.
Would they be interested in helping?
I've seen them again tomorrow about something else. If I could bring it up again and see how they feel.
If we were to make a working group, I don't know what the rules are of a council work group, are they able to be involved and be part of that group, or would it got to be councillors only? So we can invite them in.
working groups can be brought up.
Yes, I wouldn't be sure who's actually involved in them, but if we can use Part in the Park, or whatever committee members want to.
Yeah.
I think you're right, we have one of the community resource thing.
Yeah.
If we can make use of that as best as possible, and particularly since I think the money we would be appropriating is the Part in the Park money. So if we can try and bring that all together, I think that'd be, you made a really good one. Yeah.
Residents definitely need something. With no Part in the Park this year, we've hadn't had it for a long time. We need to go, I think we need to go quite big, to be honest. We need to be bold.
Yeah.
The more people on that can, the more we can do.
Right, Linda, how best, oh, I'm sorry.
I was just on the same sort of like line as Henry, but I was just thinking the bunting, would it be worth asking the Christmas lights team if they can?
Able to help us put them up. Yeah, I think that would be.
That's
Was
part
that the
of,
plan?
that would be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Ending that in a, yes. Right, Linda, we've budgeted really on officers' time, aren't we? So I suppose how do we feel about an idea of putting forward a sort of core package of what we think we can do, and then some of the other things put out to the public, say that we can do a certain number of these, vote, and then we'll take the one, the attractions that people want to come to. Does that seem amenable to everyone here? Please feel free to tell me I'm an idiot and we'll do it differently. Wonderful.
One thing we need to do is to make a recommendation that the money from last year and this year from Part in the Park is valued to support Jubilee.
Yeah, we'll have to make that recommendation for council. How quick, when's the next meeting?
20th.
Should have known that, shouldn't I? Right, I think we should make that recommendation. Do we have to do that, resolve that? I'm sorry, Councillor Waterman.
No, that's fine. I just, is it £8,000?
No, it's 6 actually. It's 3,000 times a year. Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. It's just that then you can, this committee.
Sir?
We need to reinstate them.
Ooh.
We should
Did we
probably
suspend them?
reinstate them when that chaplain.
Reinstate.
Yeah, I think I sort of mattered to me. Yeah, should we reinstate? I think for the record, we can all agree that it's a true and accurate. Right. So we have 6,000. Sorry, Councillor Water, I missed you again.
No.
Oh, good.
I thought I said 8. We got 6.
So I need to, right. So
Then the easy bit is to say yes to subject to council. We can get on with that. You know what I mean? And then pick off the 3 things and the easy things.
right, wonderful. So I propose that we request the full council to appropriate the last year's and this year's budget for Party in the Park towards Jubilee celebrations. Vote second, and should we vote? Favour? Oh, is that unanimous? It's unanimous, look at that. Wonderful, financial decisions that are unanimous. Right, so if we go through and tick off the core package and perhaps even if there's not a financial implication, that could be something that we would say, why on earth would we say no to? So, bunting. My personal opinion is that we don't go for the really super duper expensive Union flag ones, but instead opt for the sort of half price red, white, and blue. Now, I think we should probably give the authority for them to be purchased unless they're substantially cheaper to rent, but to purchase a nice uniform bunting that can stretch from the marketplace to the top, the proposed route. And with the aim of sort of using them again. But if we gave you that sort of authority, I mean, if it's personally, I think if it's not substantially cheap, we should buy it and just use it again and again. But if someone's
Plus the Jubilee plaques for £5, so that would be about £40 for the columns out here.
the centre for the Jubilee plaques, and then to move them at the end of the year to mark some of the trees. So should we just, we don't have to formally do this, should we just buy them through, or do we have to propose second?
If you propose, all of this is subject to council approving the money from that.
Okay,
So
should we just have straw
if you do a caveat that subject to council approving that, we've got the authority to do it. So on the 22nd of March, we could get all
straight. Okay. And so do we have to do these formally individually, or can we do it at the end?
You can do it at the end if you want to.
Okay, well, just
People don't get
as I say,
too
just if there's something you feel very strongly that we're doing this incorrectly, chime in, and if need be, we can do that one individually, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Just so as everyone feels. Sorry, Councillor Ward.
If we just put them on the list and then at the end go through the list that they're all on there.
Yes, if we're all agreed, so for example, bunting, anything anyone spoke out against that sort of idea. But if there's one that there is disagreement, perhaps we'll do that one separately. But just to save time on the votes, if we're all agreed on the big list, we can just see them through the others. That procedurally work wonderful. Right, Royal Photo Exhibition. Is anyone against that? That's not obvious. Perfect. Melksham Shop Bingo. Yeah, an obvious one. Wonderful. And that goes in with the window competition. If you could just give us an eye of whether we're running out of officer time there, and then maybe we'll have to. Just really cautious because, I mean, how much unpaid overtime are you guys willing to? Probably you already do a lot, don't you? Yeah, well, public sector too, as well. Right, lighting a beacon. This is one I think we should probably talk about before. I think Councillor Warner's first. I think Councillor Warner, you indicated you want to speak. Councillor Price wants to speak, and so did Councillor. So if we go in this order, that's as I saw it. And for completion, Councillor Lewis, would you like to speak to it as well? Wonderful. Right.
My proposal on this would be that we scrap the beacon as a beacon, and we give the owner some all to put together something really out of the ordinary and wonderful for the shine in the sky.
Impressive digital town hall beacon. Well, that's your vote. Councillor Water.
Yeah, I was just saying the same. I'm sure the Lights Group could produce a beacon.
With that sort of wonderful. And I think would you be able to balance sort of budgeting requirements of what?
Yeah, I'll see what Paul says.
Wonderful. I think Councillor Price and Councillor Hayes.
Essentially, just what I would have said. Yeah. Just want to get rid of the beacon and do a lovely light thing, whatever.
Same.
Councillor Lewis. As much as it pains me to lose the prospect, I think we've got to do it. I think this would be beautifully impressive, far more 21st century, but to back out the beacon. Just think of the kudos. I know, I can just imagine Linda shouting from the window, light the beacon.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I think
It would be nice, but yeah.
Still shout out.
Yeah.
you
We
could.
could have a countdown for the
Yeah, absolutely.
beacon, couldn't we?
Yes, yeah, we could do. we
Don't
could
just
do,
say
yeah.
Christmas lights.
Let's not be so downbeat about
Yeah.
this. The new beacon, wonderful. So I think we're unanimous on that.
Yeah.
It's a sensible
Yeah.
thing to do.
Oh, we're going to Shore, aren't we?
It's the way you're going to break my heart, but the classic car rally.
But I think that's an event for another day.
It is, and this is the committee to bring it to us.
Yeah,
So,
we'll,
we need all that lost. Wonderful, but I think we are all unanimous that this can't be part of our Jubilee celebration. Fair with stalls. I think, does this sort of tie in together these couple of
It's free, really, isn't it?
I think the next three are kind of the same. I mean,
Yeah,
essentially the instruction to officers is close the road, engage Melton Party in the park and get as many shops and businesses to
Yeah.
pile in as possible. Is that?
I think there's a culmination. If you could bring all of this together and create that, we got a street road closure, we can have a kind of street party, we can encourage the businesses because that can be part of the shop window and the bingo like we talked and say what we're trying to do. And we can have stores, we can have Makers Market if they wanted to do an extra one or save, go a week over because they do it the last Saturday in the month. They might do it the first Saturday in June. So yeah,
Particularly
I think
since
a little bit of work.
shops having their own stall, we're not going to charge them for it. So it's the cost would be them having their little stall and staff.
Yeah.
But if when you're going around speaking to them, you say, look, we'd really like you to put a showing out as a stall in there. We try and encourage as many as possible. So we have all of the fruits of Melksham involved in. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a sort of rather packed sort of bunting, beacon, shops, drinks, lovely. Wonderful. I think Councillor Mortimer, you first, and then Councillor Hall.
Yeah, it's all a lovely idea. I'm just a bit conscious of how much is it cost to close the road. Is that?
I don't think we have to pay what you council for a traffic order, do
It doesn't cost anything.
we? No, it's just officer time to and the marshals, but there are 15 of us, and I know that Councillor Wells has gone now. He made a very effective sort of shouting the resident back office. I think we can all do that, can't we?
Yeah.
That's all.
I was just going to add that actually, if we're looking at all these together, the only consideration we really need to make is about whether we need barriers. Are we going to confirm that we are happy to get extra seating and how we cover the marshals? But I think we just answered the marshal section.
Yeah, wonderful. So marshals are an issue because, of course, if we close this part, we'll provide access to that street by Lloyd's, don't we?
Yeah.
So we'll have to be a clear way in the middle for people for a single file piece of traffic to come through. But it's more about this than
We need security on the like main junctions.
And that was around £500 for Christmas.
is that all?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, in the grand scheme of it.
Yeah. So what you can produce is
Yeah, so you've got a blueprint for what you do at Christmas.
Yeah.
Cost more. Yeah.
Oh, and first aid is very good
The
point.
first aid.
We'll need first aid, and that's
Could we approach the Central Ambulance? I know that they're in the church across the road.
We'll have to get on with that because they might already.
They'll be booked up, won't they? It's a very good point, Councillor Rose. So is that something we could reach out to? If not, there will be lots of organisations in Melksham where there are people with their in-date first aid ticket. And we could say, would you mind manning a shift at first aid tent or town hall? I think Councillor Hall first and Councillor Price.
And with the seating, are we saying that we've got seating but encouraging residents to bring their own?
I personally sort of envisioned that our restaurants would spill out and
that's what we're thinking. It's just like having this European feel to streets where you live on the street as well as in the shop.
Yeah, and certainly with the shop bingo, Linda's going to be, they're not going to be under sort of any illusion about what's going to happen. Linda's going to be able to.
No, they'll have a full, this is what we're trying to do. We want to create this real nice atmosphere and we're welcoming businesses to spill out onto the street.
Yeah.
And so if you sell tea, coffee and biscuits and cake, then please put some seats out. And sort of I think what it is, we're just facilitating people coming together we're not doing it all for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference, you know. Here's the space. If you want to make use of it, then please do. There's other things that are going to be going on in the town. This is a chance to sort of get more involved with the community. Yeah, it's not about us sort of like telling them what to do. It's the road's closed. So you know, make the most of the space.
Because if this is a success, we can do it in future celebrations.
Yeah.
You can try, Toy Shop, I'm sure, have got items that they could sell here. It'd be really interesting to see how our local businesses adapt to selling if we really try and encourage everyone who's got something to sell, even if they're selling gym memberships and giving out water bottles.
Yeah.
You know, that's something. Well, they're usable. Oh yeah. No. We're on a very full committee. But yeah, I think when Linda's going around, it's almost a challenge for local businesses to think, how can you make the most of this? It's not every day that you get to have everyone out in the town centre, show people what your business has to offer. It's a fantastic marketing exercise really for our local shops.
You set out your stall, but be as imaginative. Because the thing is, if you tell people what to do, you can stem their imagination. You let them say, right, you've got this space, so you know, you make our town. You know, you want to sell your wares, show people what you can do. So
fine.
Fill your boots rather than we tell them how much they can have and what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think you rightly reference. I mean, in many European countries, they're better at doing this, right, than we are.
Mm-hmm.
We get tied up in sort of more prescriptive bureaucracy, and I think that sort of bodies like us get a bit too worried about how is it going to look, how is it going to feel. Get everyone involved, and ultimately, the whole spirit of it is just bringing people together, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, so are we saying we're scrapping the option to supply the seating for the 500?
Yeah, I mean, what cost are we on at the moment? I mean, we're tallied up quite so if we were going to have 1,500 budgeted for our digital beacon, and we're already on what that's about. I think how much was the that red, white, and blue bunting was. So this is £960 for our red, white, and blue bunting. So this is all that. We've got Royal Exhibition printing. So count a couple £100 for printing the bingo cards and stamps and stuff like that. £1,500 is our sort of total budget for our digital beacon, unless things get the other hand depends how much they can make it, doesn't it? 500 for Marshall says. Sorry, I just trying to mentally count.
No, sorry, I just thought we're not having the beacon on, but it's going to cost us something.
We'll have to certainly put some beacon money towards our digital one. Yeah. So essentially, what we're going to spend on the beacon is spent because we're going to do our own.
All right, so that's the same.
Yeah.
The other two is that.
So it's 500, 2, 3. Well, we've got about £2,000 left. If we're trying to over, I don't know, so we're not going to go over.
We've got £1,000
Sorry?
to entertainment rights.
But if we're having entertainment rights here, there's no cost.
Oh, perfect. So they'll bring them and charge a ticket. And
Yeah,
Okay,
so if we use Benny Tuber's playground rights that he made for Christmas, he will rock up.
He's pretty good actually. So tell him what to do. They can do it free.
Yes.
Ask him for how to
It might also be nice.
Sunday, that's new. So he can do any day of that weekend except Saturday.
So
It might
the
also-
entertainment for 1,000 is not, we don't need that.
It might also be nice. I don't know how this works with interest, Linda, but Gary owns Boomerang, doesn't he? They have big things that they bring out for those sort of. I don't know how that works with interest. That has to be done in a perfectly proper manner. But maybe that's something. Get a bit of Boomerang stuff going on. Tell them not to make any money either.
Park.
Yeah, if we're going to the park sort of thing, get Boomerang to sort of fill up the park a bit. You get some nice things for the younger children. And I actually, if that's something that people want, it might be so nice.
That's Gary's business. Isn't it?
It is, but we can also ask, a bit of civic spirit that it's a Jubilee
And
celebration.
look at the advertising again.
Well,
We
quite.
can say where it's from.
Yeah, you can have a
Loud.
sign up saying boomerang. We can try and
You can
twist
ask.
his arm, couldn't we? Maybe. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, sorry to specify, I might have to leave shortly as I have work.
Crikey.
I didn't believe it would go on until 9 o'clock, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
So I didn't think to actually say I apologise.
Right, well, should we try, what time do you have to leave?
Within 10 minutes.
Right, well, let's
But
get
I
through
don't want
this.
to rush anyone, so.
No, well, it's an added impetus. Yeah, I think we discussed it rather well, and actually we're in sort of concluding themes, aren't we? So I think, in short then, are we saying that the whole sort of town centre, beacon, bingo, having the party in the town centre,
Yeah.
perhaps as the core offering, and then we'll go out to residents and say, actually, we've pretty much offered everything, because now we're afternoon tea and cake, that's free. Should we do that?
Yeah.
So, the sort of historical epics, and now we're down to cinema in King George V, silent disco, 70s, 80s disco, picnic in the park. Who feels strongly that any of those should be on the core of them rather than asking, doing a poll of which options and what money left we have? Councillor Aitken, you want to?
Let's just cut out the cinema in the park then.
You think
Because the two discos will be
it's sourced?
personal, yeah, they can do that themselves. What was the last thing?
So we've got the two discos and then picnic in the park, which actually,
I don't think we need to actually advertise it, except to say, come along and.
I was going to say, we don't have to pay a huge amount of, but if there's money left in the budget,
Which I think
it might be worth, just because I'm thinking people with younger families, it would be nice to have something there that's not so hustle and bustle of the town centre, but on the Sunday afternoon to have, Punch and Judy, try and get the splash pad, and we've invested all that to try and make it sort of a young family friendly place. If we have the money, I think that's something really lovely to do. Councillor, sorry, I can see that you want to.
I'm thinking of cinema and KGB is maybe putting it to public to see what usage it would get. So I think it would be good to get a rough idea about that, whether it's just a simple poll, would you use it, yes or no, or would you?
Again, is that something a bit like the classic car? This is something that we could do on another day.
Yeah.
If we wanted to invest in cinema in KGB, that we actually come up with some kind of business model
This is
and then ask the
this is
public.
what I was sort of thinking. If we're going to do it, I think we should do it really well,
Yeah,
because there's a strong offering in this area for I mean, if you've been to the Bodal Lake, it's
Lennox not far away.
it's really lovely as well. So I think doing it, I think we should do it well, and also, when we consider the fact that it's £1,000 to offer BBC iPlayer, or we could put that £1,000 towards something for the younger children. I don't have a young family, but I understand very expensive, and it would be nice to have that you can just sort of go there with your picnic, have your Punch and Judy, and strong arm Gary to bring something along. I just think that would be, I think that'd be quite nice, but. But if we're not, I'm happy to.
Can I just say I declared an interest because I've got the community meals and then I've declared interest in that.
Community meals on.
It works on the calendar of things that are happening.
Oh yeah, but we're not
We're not approving on.
not approving or rejecting. So
Unless we do need a conversation about,
well, we could try and bring them in which case I think you should probably
I'm doing something in the afternoon, a tea dance and a choir in the evening. And I was just going to see whether, I think I've got sponsors for the music that's coming. Have the afternoon and evening free for the rent is then.
procedure. I think we have to defer to the experts. Terribly qualified to answer. We've got A, declaring interest, and B, was it use of the assembly?
Yeah, it would be. When I spoke to you before.
well, if it gets listed as a Jubilee event that's open to the public, could this committee decide that that is one of the events and then put it in as the same thing that we're doing for the other
Yeah.
events in the hall.
I think we need to get a resolution from council that they will happy for any events that are celebrating the Jubilee, that the town council offers the assembly room without any rent. It depends on the event.
Yes.
If
so
people
we
are
do-
charged, they're going to be, yeah.
No, so
Yeah.
in this one, so the community meals in the morning would be, let's do normal. And then the afternoon and evening would be open to the public
That's free of them.
as Jubilee.
And they're free of it.
Yeah.
Which,
Personally, I think that's also something that we would argue in council that we should be doing.
Exactly.
But if procedure, that's what we
Yeah,
have to do.
yeah.
Let's cross, dot the i's, cross the t's, and get it done. But personally speaking, you'll find a strong advocate in moving that. That's Ray, you wanted to speak to that.
Just to say that if you do end up with this event being a Jubilee event, you'll be forced to serve coronation chicken,
Oh, which I love.
which
one
was
my
served at the
favourites.
Queen's dinner on the day of the coronation.
And it's celebration made from scraps. But no, I mean, actually, and it mirrors rather beautifully, actually, because the community meals event with singing, tea and dance and choir probably appeals to a slightly older demographic. And then concurrently in the park, we've got the events for the young families with the sort of Punch and Judy and stuff. I think they balance it rather nicely. And it appeals to the whole community.
Yeah, I did speak to my meals people, to see if they were doing street parties or anything like that.
But doing the assembly will be rather a lot nicer, wouldn't it? Well, I think all we will here would make a strong case to full council.
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. We'll make a strong case.
Yeah, I'm sure you will find support. Wonderful. So actually, we just decided to do pretty much everything.
Not the classic car sign.
We refined it.
Yes.
Before we-
Yeah.
Yes, and if that all seems achievable,
Yeah.
which actually a lot of it's facilitating community groups to do it themselves and businesses to do it themselves. All we really need to do is whip and shape and take up this don't take the mick and
Things, if you have lots of rules and restrictions, people get put off.
they do.
As long as you facilitate the space,
Yeah.
you do it.
Well, I will be out in the day and if someone's going and go, oh yeah, back off, you're having too much space there. I'm sure council will do that.
Oh, yeah, I'll I'll hone my school teacher skills.
Perfect. Well, I think we've got everything we need.
Yeah.
I understand that Council Price has to dash. Council wants to say something before.
Are we just one more item?
There is one more item.
Yes.
Yes. Miriam would just go on.
The sprinkling.
It's, yeah.
We'll get minuted, Mike. Fine.
Anyway, you can take it in your absence that you will be there at the spring clean and say thank you for volunteering.
Yeah.
Actually, once you're here, are we happy to vote on block for
And make the recommendation to full council for the money from party.
Right, we've already done that.
Yeah,
Right.
and that.
So now it's just these bits that we've decided.
Yes, yeah.
So the motion to make a recommendation to full council to use those resources
For these events.
for those events and to delegate all necessary responsibility to officers.
Yeah, probably do a report. for
We've all
council.
got
Probably do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we need a proposal in a second, which everyone wants to jump in on.
Yeah.
You pay two.
Oh, I can't.
Oh, there we go. Wonderful. All in favour?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Look at that. Right, done. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be thinking of you.
Take care. Right, so in all of my ferreting around of papers, there is a seventh item somewhere on my there it is. The National Big Spring Clean. Members are requested to consider the Town Council's involvement in the National Big Spring Clean in association with Keep It and Tidy between the 25th of March and the 10th of April. So it's something that we do annually. Was there anything else to this? Just the-
No, we tend to work with the In Bloom team because they're always out and about. We'll get the livery, there's stickers, posters and
There you
stuff
go,
like
and sort
that.
of tabards
And
and
probably do some promotion on Facebook and a bit of consultation, see who else we can get.
Yeah,
We can.
you've more or less just said everything I was going to
Oh,
ask
sorry.
today, yeah. The
the date again?
So it's a 10-day, it's a period of 2 weeks between the 25th of March and the 10th of April.
Yeah.
But during that time, the 3rd of April is a scheduled Blue and Tidy Town Day
Yes.
anyway.
Yeah.
So the suggestion is that the town council support and promote and make a big deal of that
Yeah.
day, work together with them, maybe put on some tea, coffee, just make more of a thing of it. Start on
Yeah.
On the third.
the, rather than set up a separate.
Day,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what's the point competing with it?
But we also discussed, didn't we, Miriam, that people could do it at any time during those 2 weeks and hopefully collect equipment from the town hall.
So people have the kit here and let people.
Yeah.
So I suppose, I mean, we can, with these, you arrange with Wiltshire Council to, the rubbish and collect. Samples of bits, parcels.
Yeah, that all happens.
Due to Saturday. Right, well, I mean, Council.
Is there any way that when we do this street clean, spring clean, is there any way that we can sort of like get people to take it on an ongoing basis if we sort of like handed out sort of like litter picker?
Things like brag. Yes, I mean, this is, I suppose it speaks more to, I can't remember what John called them. It was a fantastic idea. I just really dislike the name. Was it Pride Teams? Pride. But I suppose that's the kind of thing. Like in Bower Hill, they have Bragg, Bower Hill Residents Action Group, and you have a sort of Friends of Sherwold Field. We can sort of promote. Yeah, I think that's maybe this could be for people to have their local.
I'm sure it will start a few people off at least coming regularly to the litter pick. I mean, we have quite a good following. We didn't have very many this Sunday, but the previous Sunday, I think it was 20 or more. I can't remember. So it comes and goes. But you find more in the summer than you do in the winter.
Maybe if we were to write, when we next write an article in the Melton Independent, it would be something that we suggest, is ongoing.
We need to
we can support.
Right, let's allow
Right.
Push how much it actually costs to clear the town up. If we weren't having to pay that, we could use it on other things or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, on our environmental day that we're hosting in the town hall, that's something that we can really push and say, look, help us by taking some agency in your area and going out and picking up some rubbish.
There was an interesting little item on the TV just before I came out. I was watching the news and about some students who do what is now known as hogging.
When they're
running and picking up litter. And I thought you, Linda.
anyway,
It's that lovely young girl from Alert as well that's picked up so much rubbish. And perhaps actually we could, part of our environmental group work, we could look at even recognition in sort of form of a certificate or whatever we can offer. It needn't be expensive, but recognition from the town council. Does the mayor have his own headed paper?
he could have.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have Melton Town Council. We could have just put the name of the mayor on there because it changes, as you can see. But if the mayor, some nice headed paper from the town where we write a lovely letter to say, thank you for doing it. That might be a nice way to try and foster that.
It's starting with the young people. Like we could have like an album like the Little Warriors, where the young people are actually awarded.
They're quite good at that.
And in finding cases like that, perhaps we can invite her to something or give her something. If we hold town events, wouldn't it be really lovely to say that you're given so much to the town? We'll recognise that by you are guest of honour for this, or turn the beacon on,
or switch the lights
on, or something. Something fantastic. It needn't cost much, but it's a recognition that actually this is something that will cost the council.
We perhaps involve businesses to get them to tidy their sort of like the outside their premises and about that sponsorship,
which was of course always standard practice. Shopkeepers would speak up there.
Again, the Europeans abroad, they're every day they're out there and they're actually cleaning it. So perhaps very good here. Certificate to say that they do tidy.
Yes, we could. I have sort of 5-star food hygiene. We have town council. This is community sort of.
5 stars.
Maybe there's sort of things we can explore with that. But I think we've probably discussed these points to the sort of sufficient degree for the scope of the agenda items in this meeting. So, do I formally call it to an end?
Yeah, you can finish.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you very much, and very much everyone for the meeting too. Yeah, quite know how that. Miriam, there's your pen.
Where's the minutes?
Maybe we're going to consult